Famous Smoky Mountain moonshiner Digger Maines wants to revitalize his tiny Tennessee hometownie. Meet Eric Maines inside Fruit Jar Alley, his wife's clothing boutique in the sleepy Smoky Mountain town of Newport, Tennessee. Better known as Digger from the Discovery Channel docuseries Moonshiners, Maines is wearing overalls with the top button on each side undone, and doesn't look like someone of reality TV fame. But then again, Maines doesn't exactly line up with my expectation of a real-life, backwoods moonshiner either, someone who has spent his life illegally making the kind of liquor that's bottled up in unlabeled mason jars. He's polite and fairly clean-cut, with a short, gray beard and glasses and a thick southern accent. At 56 years old, he reminds me a bit of my dad. Maines walks me through his store next door, the back alley granary, where he, ironically, sells brewing and winemaking supplies. Upstairs is a lounge that he calls his dude den. The space is bigger than my apartment and mostly empty except for a bar, a pool table, and a small seating area. The minimal decorations include a taxidermy white bird and a picture of a donkey. Maines props one of those unlabeled jars of brown liquor on the bar and offers me a sip. For himself, he cracks open a can of Mountain Dew. I oblige and, to my surprise, it's actually pretty good. I don't make shitty liquor, Maines says. Maines has been making moonshine in the Smoky Mountains for more than 40 years. A friend's father was a still builder, and when Maines was just 14 years old, he approached the man, eager to learn the trade. He said that when I turned 18 and my father said it was okay, he'd let me hang around with him, but not before then, says Maines. Making liquor might have been a bit of a tax violation, but folks around here, they had morals. They were good family men that just needed to make a living, and they wouldn't let a child hang around that. On his 18th birthday, with his father's permission, he didn't think I'd stick with it, Maines recalls. He returned to the still builder, ready to learn. A licensed embalmer, Maines worked at his father's funeral parlor by day and moonshined by night. It was not the money that really lured me in. I always looked up to these old guys that made liquor around here. They were always kind to folks, and they were the pillars of their communities. They were always the first to help, Maines says. And they took this slop, if you will, and made a beautiful clear liquid that they could make some money off of. I just found it fascinating, the whole process. It wasn't long before Maines started working with Marvin Sutton, famously known as Popcorn, one of the most prolific Appalachian moonshiners in history. The subject of several documentary films, Popcorn died by suicide in 2009 after being convicted of several offenses related to moonshining. Almost every piece of information out there about Maines, including his bio on the Discovery Channel website, states that Popcorn was essentially Maines' mentor. But Maines tells me that's not exactly true. He describes their relationship like an equal partnership, stating it was actually he who helped Popcorn build his first 500-gallon still. The two friends made moonshine together for more than 20 years, running the stills at all hours of the day until Maines was ready to walk away from moonshining altogether. I was getting tired of it. I had a new child born, and I didn't want to go to jail. Popcorn would flaunt it in front of everybody, and that was kind of dangerous, says Maines. I told him, I'm done. I've had enough. I appreciate all the fun, but it's time to grow up and be a big boy. I want to raise this child and not worry about the TTV showing up and putting us in jail. A few years later, Popcorn was arrested and sentenced to federal jail time. Clearly, that wasn't the end of Maines' moonshine career. I got into home brewing beer and wine to try to scratch my itch, but it didn't quite work, he admits. The next time around, he joined forces with a less dangerous and extra jolly partner, Mark Ramsey. Best friends for more than 30 years, Ramsey is Maine's beloved cohort on Moonshiners, and the two are often described as an old married couple. We finish each other's sentences, Maine says. You can't disguise a good friendship, and I guess that's why we do so well. We do love each other like brothers, and we're not going to do anything to hurt one another. It was Ramsey who pushed for the two to join the cast of Moonshiners, but Maines says he wasn't interested. To be honest, Maines seems completely indifferent to, if not slightly uncomfortable with, his fame. He only agreed when he was assured the show was one season short of cancellation. I thought the show was done for, so I said, if you want to do it, I'll do it this last season because it's about dead, he says. And then it just took off. It was dying on the vine, according to the producers. Season 9 of Moonshiners aired this spring, and it's difficult not to give the charismatic duo most of the credit for the show's revival. They've even joined the judges panel on Discovery Channel's Master Distiller, a new reality competition show for budding distillers. Maines says they're stopped on the street constantly by fans asking to take photos. If it puts a smile on their face, chatting with a country bumpkin like me, so be it, he humbly concedes. During our interview, and with incredible timing, Maines pauses to read a text from Ramsey. We're good for season 10, it reads. I don't know whether to jump for joy or cry like a baby, Maines says. Every minute Maines isn't filming, he's minding his store, which opened in 2018. Because distilling is still illegal in Tennessee, he sells beer and winemaking supplies and hosts classes on the two crafts. I don't see any reason to help someone break the law, he says. But I have a lot of buddies that make beer around here, so I figured I'll just get in the business of supplying them. Just like Maines didn't get into moonshining for the money, he didn't start his business for it either. Instead, his aim is to be a sort of pillar of his community. To start, he's hoping to build some momentum in Newport, which has a population of roughly 7,000 and is passed over by tourists for the big, bright lights of Gatlinburg or other Smoky Mountain hotspots. Maines and his wife took a big risk to kickstart a downtown revitalization with their businesses, but slowly, others are following. The street looks pretty empty, but he says Newport now has an ice cream parlor, a hair salon, a firearms store, and a food truck that's looking to open a brick and mortar. Being the town undertaker's son, my parents worked every day, and I would come to work with my dad. I was in every nook and cranny of this downtown area, and it's home to me, he says. I could walk into every store and name everyone who worked there, and I miss that. We've become so disconnected from our communities and people, don't take time to be kind and speak to each other, and have little conversations like, did you fish this week? I'd love to see it get back to that. Famous Smoky Mountain moonshiner Digger Maines wants to revitalize his tiny Tennessee hometown. The streets of his small Tennessee town are quiet, with only the occasional rustling of leaves in the breeze or the distant sound of a dog barking. It's a place where time seems to have slowed down, where history lingers in the air like the mist that rises over the Smoky Mountains at dawn. But for all the beauty, there's a sense that this place is on the brink of fading into obscurity. And that's where Digger Maines comes in. Digger is a name that carries weight in these hills. For years, he was known as one of the last of the old-school moonshiners, a relic of a bygone era, when stills were hidden deep in the woods, and a sip of homemade hooch was the closest thing to a local treasure. His legacy isn't just tied to his underground operation, it's also about his deep connection to the land, the people, and the place he calls home. But lately, Digger's focus has shifted. After years of keeping a low profile, he's emerged from the shadows to take on a new challenge, revitalizing his tiny Tennessee hometown, a community that, like so many others in the Appalachian region, has suffered from economic decline, outmigration, and the disappearance of traditional industries. For Digger, this is more than just a business venture or a personal ambition. It's a way to give back to a place that gave him everything. It's about using the very same grit, resourcefulness, and passion that made him a moonshiner to fuel a new kind of revival in the town he loves. The Heart of the Hills digger was born in a log cabin on the outskirts of town. Raised in the shadow of the Smoky Mountains, he learned from a young age that life here required hard work and ingenuity. His grandfather, a legendary moonshiner in his own right, passed down the art of distilling, and Digger took to it like a duck to water. "It's in my blood," he says with a shrug, as if there's nothing more natural in the world than making moonshine. "My family's been making liquor up here since before Prohibition, and it ain't about just making a product. It's about carrying on a tradition." For years, Digger kept his moonshining operations hidden in the deep, wild terrain of the Smokies, a place that was as much part of the product as the recipe itself. The rough, untamed landscape made it easy to keep things under wraps, and the mountains, with their thick canopies of trees and winding hollows, were the perfect cover for the hidden stills. But times have changed. The world has shifted, and moonshining is no longer the risky but rewarding business it once was. The authorities have cracked down on illicit alcohol production, and the market for unlicensed hooch has diminished. With the passage of